Hello, I'm so glad you could join our painting party today. I'm Julie Swanson Davis for Blick Art Materials. I'm also a designer and instructor for a group painting studio, specializing in making art fun and easy for everyone. Sometimes a painting looks difficult at first, then you realize it's just the same thing repeated over and over again. That's the case with our painting today, a moonlit lake and dock. What makes this look so impressionistic and complicated? One simple, short brushstroke. Are you ready to see how it's done? All right, well, pour yourself a glass of wine, follow along with me on the video, and anytime you need to pause and catch up, you go right ahead. First of all, let's look at the colors that we're going to use to make this nocturnal scene. We have two colors of blue. This is phthalo blue and primary blue. You're also going to need 4 pumps of blockout white, 3 pumps of black, 2 pumps of chromium oxide green, and this awesome color right here is my personal favorite. You need 2 pumps of fluorescent violet. Now the canvas I'm going to demonstrate on today is a 16 by 20, but you could also make it a smaller size, 12 by 16, because they would be proportionally correct. Now here's my brush selection. First of all, I have this wonderful large brush that has flat sides and it's rounded at the top. This is called an oval wash brush. A similar brush would be a filbert. I also have another brush that's more of a medium-sized brush. It's almost square at the top. And then I'm also going to use a small round shape with a point to it. Let's start with our horizon line first. If you have a ruler, you could measure about 9.5 inches from the top. If you don't have a ruler, a standard paper towel size is about 11 inches. So you could just position it so that it's down at the bottom of the canvas and make a line across the top, just moving over. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight at all. I've got my large brush first and my water. I'm going to get that brush nice and wet and just kind of wipe it off a little bit, or else tap it against the side of the jar so that it's not dripping. And we're going to do the phthalo blue first. That's the one that looks darker over here. I'm going to just paint along the top of the canvas here. Now you see where I get some white dots, some of the canvas showing through. I can take and add a little bit more water to that area and cover it. You don't necessarily need to go back and get more paint. But before I go back for more paint, let me get just a little more water. And we're going to fill this area from the top of the canvas to the horizon line. Now the moon is going to be positioned, about right here. You can make it a little lower, a little higher, even switch it around to the other side if you want to. But I'm just going to take this brush and kind of make a rough circle where I want the moon to be. Now I'm going to go and make circles around that moon, like so. It's going to get a little bigger, and as I go off to the side, I'm going to forget about the circle and then just make the stroke like this. Now we're going to do the lake next. And the lake is going to be this color of blue, the primary blue, but this is still a little bit dark. We want to have it kind of bright and moonlit. So if I take about half of my white, like this, and just scooch it over here, and take about half my blue, and right here in the middle, I'm just going to stir gently like this until I have a really beautiful light blue. Okay, from here, I'm going to paint from the horizon line down to the bottom of the canvas. So we really did need to mix up quite a bit of this color. If you pick up some of that blue in the horizon line as you go up against it, that's okay. You'll notice how I'm going from one side of the canvas to the other side of the canvas in one big long stroke. When you get down to the bottom, you can move it up onto the lip of the easel if you have an easel that has a lip on it like mine. Clean that brush out again. And this is where I'm going to teach you to do that one single simple stroke that you're going to repeat over and over and over again. But before I do that, I think I'm going to have you put the moon in a little stronger first. This way we know exactly where it's going to go. It's still wet paint underneath there, so we're not going to be able to get it too terribly white, but at least we know where the moon is going to be positioned in the sky. Okay, now, with this round brush, I've cleaned it off and I have it as flat as possible. Just, you can touch it, rub it against a paper towel like that to flatten it out. And I'm going to go into my white paint and we're going to do a side stroke. It's a small one underneath the moon. It ends up being a little bit bigger on one side and shorter on the other. If you just do kind of lightly, you're using just the rounded tip of the brush. See that? We're keeping it as horizontal as possible in the lake because, you know, it's the surface of a lake, so we'll have horizontal ripples. Now, you don't need to clean off your brush, just go for some more white paint. As we get into the sky, we're going to use that same stroke, but where we've made these circles, you can see in the paint, we're going to follow along that and make a dashed line that goes around the moon, like this. It's still that side stroke, it's a short one. They almost look like little fish or something like that. Let's add that lake color that we just did, this light blue. Let's put some of those up in the sky. Okay, now I'm going to kind of bring these in between the white here and there. Not as perfect a circle as I was doing with the white. All right, next we're going to take that same lake mixture. Let's add a little bit more blue to it. Let's make it a little darker. I'm going to come down here into the lake and I'm going to go around the white area that I created, doing my side strokes. And we had to stop that white at some point because it's a reflection of the moon. So underneath it now, we'll have side strokes of this lighter blue. See, I'm taking that same color now, and I'm going on the outside, all the way around the circle. You can kind of look at what you did with the background and see where the circle goes. You can see the strokes in that dark blue still. Now, we're going to use straight primary blue, and I hope you have some left. I do right here. It doesn't have any white mixed in with it, okay? These are going to be out away from the white a little bit more. This is where the moonlight is really not hitting the surface of the lake. I'm going to take these all the way out to the side of the canvas. So I've filled up the rest of the lake with that, and now I'm going to start up here in the sky. Now these don't show up very much because really it's very similar to the color that's in the sky, but I'm still going to put it in there anyway, even though you can't see it very well. I am going to concentrate it over to the left side as I did with the lake. I cleaned it off and I kind of I used my paper towel to get the shape of the brush back again. And now we're going to my pretty violet color. Let's start in the sky first on this one. This one stands out quite a bit. As it dries, it is going to darken a little, so you can go a little bit brighter than you'd perhaps think you'd want. So I'm going to work this around in a circle. And bring it off to the side. I'm going to position this outside of the highlight area, so concentrating it a little more over to the left. And how much you put in is really up to you. If you're a fan of violet like I am, I'm going to try and put quite a bit in there. If you're not, you don't have to put quite as much. Washing out the brush again. Pat it dry. Last time I'm going to ask you to do the side strokes. I promise. This is almost it for the side strokes. Dip that straight into the phthalo blue. Now you don't really need to put it in the sky. If you do, use it thickly just here and there. But since the sky's already phthalo blue, you don't need to do too much at all. But we do need to get some phthalo blue down here into the lake. And this I really am going to keep over here, mostly to the left side and down in the bottom corner. There again, to get down to the bottom of the canvas, you might need to lift your canvas up and put it on the edge of the easel. Put a little bit more down here. Okay, one last thing to do, and then I'm going to let you take a break. I am going to switch brushes, however, so let's just leave the big one in the water and switch to this medium-sized square brush. You'll need to wet it first, tap it against the side, and pick up some of your black paint. Now, these brushes are great because they have two ways. If you go sideways, like this, you can get a real thin line, but if you turn the brush so that the widest part is against the canvas, you get a much thicker line. And it's easier to get a straight line with this too. So first of all, I'm just going to come across on top of the lake with my black. Like so. Yeah, that's okay, but really to make it look like a landmass over there, we need to have a little bit more than a straight line. Kind of up to you. Where is this lake at? Is it in a mountainous region? Is it in a Midwest, more of a flat place? I'm going to also paint the shoreline right up here in the front of the canvas with black. So there I am, moving it up to the edge of the easel. I'm going to come in about halfway with this. Okay, and then from the end of that, I'm going to go up to the side of the canvas a little bit more. It's time for a break. You've done a lot of painting. Your hand might be getting tired at this time. So go socialize with the people you're painting with. Pour yourself another glass of wine. Take about 10 minutes or so at least, and then we'll come back and finish the rest. Welcome back. Are you ready to finish up this painting? We've done great so far. So let's continue by making the dock first. Now it kind of depends on you how far you want it to come over. It can be 2-3 inches, but the important thing is it needs to be horizontal. So if you're a little nervous about doing that, you could use a ruler, or you can use the edge of your paper towel. Mine is going to be about 2.5 inches in width. I'm going to go from the edge of that line to this side of the canvas in a slanted stroke, slanted line. So if I line my ruler up against that corner of the line we just drew and draw it down to the side of the canvas, that's going to be one edge of my dock. Okay, now if I go over and position my ruler so that I've got it up against the edge here, see, I can see that. And then I look over here and I kind of see that it's lining up with the line that I just drew. So I'm going to hold the ruler with my finger and I'm just going to swing it down almost like it's a clock. Let's see how far I'm going to go with that. That looks good. I'm going to take it down here off the bottom of the canvas. And now I'm going to fill this in with black paint. And let's pick up our little brush now. Now we're going to make the piers. And what I mean by that are we're going to make little lines that go along the dock. But I'm going to start here at the corners, and I'm just going to paint a little line on either end, like so. Then I'm going to look at that line, it's maybe an inch. I'm going to come down the dock a little bit and make another line. See how it's vertical? And another line. Okay, now this one is going to come under the dock, so I'm going to lengthen it just a little bit. And across from this one, you won't be able to see where it's on top of the dock, but you're going to be able to see that it's coming down into the water a little bit. So, and then let's do another one that comes straight down here. We're going to switch brushes again and go back to the medium-sized one. And now we're going to use a little bit of that green right there. Well, the first place I want you to put the green is along the bank here. We're going to create some grass, but I think I'll have you paint at the top of it first with the green, like this. That's kind of where the moonlight is hitting the bank, so you can actually see some of the green of the grass. But I'm leaving a lot of it dark black underneath, just painting some at the top. Then I'm going to take this brush, and you see how I'm positioning it against that green I just painted, and I'm pulling it up into the lake. And as I pull up, I kind of lift my brush away from the canvas. This is going to create kind of a rough top that you might actually believe are grasses along the side of the lake. But I'm using the side of the brush now that gives me a thinner line. See that? Let's put a little bit of that green back here also on our hillside, just along the top. Like that. And then, just to kind of keep our painting all tied together, I'm actually going to put some of this green out here in the water. I'm doing the side stroke again, you notice, but I'm doing it with this brush, so it looks a little different. It looks more of a line. But when you put it on top of some of these colors, you can almost believe that it looks a little yellow. Just a couple little things now to really finish this thing off. We're almost there. I'm going to go back to the little brush, and I'm going to paint just some horizontal lines across my dock here, kind of to give you the idea that it's made out of wooden boards or maybe even aluminum boards. But let's find one of those light blues that we mixed up earlier. And here we want to go horizontal again, but let's just do a few lines horizontally down the dock. Let's put a little bit of that on the side of each of these piers. This way you can bring it back up a little higher, and that makes you believe that it's actually a taller pier holding up the dock. A little bit of the phthalo blue now. If you come underneath each of these piers over here on the right and just give it a little zigzag down like that. Right at the base, zigzag, zigzag with your brush. Right at the base, just a little zigzag down with your brush. That gives you a reflection in the water then. Let's do some cattails, shall we? Okay, let's go to our black paint, and we'll want to get these a little more detailed, so let's not overload our brush with color. If you load up your brush with color and you see a big glob of paint on it there, that's going to be a little harder to control. So if you roll it up against the paper like that, you can see that round pointed shape again. That's going to be a little easier to work with. So I'm just going to make a few. I've got to go back quite frequently with these little brushes too and get more paint. A few little black lines. Now at the top of this one over here, I'm going to paint an oval, a long oval, like this. And then I'm going to turn my brush around, and I'm going to take the tip of that, and I'm going to pull it out, just to make it a little pointed, a little line up on top. That's a cattail. Let's do another one of those over here. And right here. Trying to paint a skinny little line like that is hard to do. So that's why I'm bringing it out here with the handle of the brush instead. The last thing that I promised you was a special material to make the reflections, make the lake glow and the water glitter, and that is glitter glaze. This is Sargent Art's acrylic glitter glaze. I'm going to pour a little bit of this into another container. You don't need too much of it. It looks white in that bowl, and it's going to look a little bit white as we put it out on the canvas, but I promise you it dries clear. And if you look at my sample back there against the wall, you'll see just how beautiful this really is. I am going to, first of all, I am going to dab that over the surface of the moon pretty heavily because I want that to be really glittery right there. And then I'm going to bring this around in that same circular pattern so that I can get glitter around the moon, make it glow. Now, if you wanted to, you could be using a small brush for this, and to tell you the truth, it really just matters how much glitter you like. Do you like a lot? You could fill the whole sky. I'm just going to kind of go by the less is more rule, and I'm only going to concentrate it around the lighter areas where the reflection is in the water and the lighter areas in the sky. Right, that's the end, folks. Thank you so much for joining me for this moonlit lake. I know that a lot of you probably have good, fond memories of a lake in summer. I know I sure do. So I would enjoy looking at this painting every single time and thinking about an evening at the side of a lake. Thank you.